What's good, people? Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for me. So, just kind of doing a little recap here of AJ versus Christian Prenga. So I guess I'll just start off with addressing the elephant in the room with regards to this fight. Was AJ Prenga a fixed match? Listen, my initial reaction, and I mean, I made comments on other videos that I watch. My initial reaction was that the Prenga fight reminded me of the fight between Daniel Dubois and Kevin Lerena, right? If you guys remember, Kevin Lerena dropped Daniel Dubois in their fight in the first round, I believe 2 or 3 times, and then mysteriously just stops punching in the subsequent round. Daniel Dubois comes back and knocks Kevin Lerena out cold, right, with a series of uppercuts. And, I mean, he was knocked out on his feet. He was out on his feet. So similarly, in the Joshua Prenga fight, you have Prenga, who, yes, was the uppercut illegal, right? Collar tie, grabbing AJ, doing some MMA style dirty boxing. Was it illegal? Yes. Do I consider it to be a dirty move? No, because everybody does it, especially all these heavyweights. AJ's done it himself. So, yeah, the punch was illegal, but someone on Joshua's level shouldn't be getting caught with something like that. If we're honest. But anyways, getting back to the main point, Prenga catches AJ. AJ goes down. His balance seemed to be off the whole fight. Even before he got dropped, his balance just looked off, and it's looked off since the Dubois fight, right? If you want to talk about the Jake Paul fight, I thought his balance looked off. He looked unsteady. So there's clearly some neurological trauma that AJ is dealing with that I believe is a direct result of the Dubois fight, because he took an absolute beating. I just watched that fight again yesterday, and it's crazy how, like, Daniel Dubois beat the absolute brakes off of AJ. Like, that was a beat down. So there's clearly some neurological traumatic residue, if you will. I'm not a doctor, but it definitely seems like he's not firing on all cylinders. But Prenga gets him down, puts him down a couple times. We can debate whether it's balance or he got clipped. And then all of a sudden in the second round, when one would think that Prenga is on the verge, he's on the cusp of the greatest achievement of his career, he just stops throwing punches. Again, similar to Lerena, obviously Dubois wasn't the fighter he is today in terms of stature, but that was still a good win because Dubois was a highly touted prospect. He's been a highly touted prospect since he turned professional. So you're looking at Prenga, who has a gold medalist and 2-time heavyweight champ of the world. Dana, he's got the drop on him essentially, right? And he just stops punching. So that's where you have to think, like, okay, so is the fix actually in? And you have to start asking questions, right? We've seen Simon Jordan. He's probably the most prominent pundit. Paulie Malignaggi. These guys who are pretty prominent amongst hardcore fans. They're all kind of saying that the fight was a bit dubious because it just seems like Prenga just stopped punching, and it's hard to explain why. Yeah, it was AJ throwing back, was a jab starting to land, starting to connect, yes. But from the naked eye, it didn't look like AJ landed anything of consequence to really deter Prenga from throwing. So you have to start to ask yourself, okay, was AJ in on the fix? And for me, I feel like that's hard to believe because the first knockdown was legit, right? It was illegal, but AJ was legitimately hurt. That's what I mean by legit. Joshua was clearly buzzed. And, you saw his eyes kind of roll back, and it's like, oh wow, he really got hurt by that. So that's something. If you've been watching boxing, if you've ever boxed before, if you've ever been hurt or you hurt somebody, you know that face. So he wasn't faking when he went down. So it's hard to say that AJ somehow was in on the fix. If we're talking about Prenga, we have to accept that Prenga allowed himself to be knocked out because AJ's knockout of Prenga was legit. Prenga went down from that punch and he was hurt. Again, the way his body fell, the expression on his face when he got caught, to me indicated he was hurt by that punch. So then you have to accept that Prenga agreed to get clipped with a legit punch. Again, yeah, AJ's diminished, but he can still punch, right? That's the last thing to go. He's still got the power. So you have to accept that Prenga was willing to risk his life for maybe, I'd be shocked if he made more than $500,000 for this fight, right? So he risked his life for $500,000 and maybe another fight, maybe he reaches an M or something like that. But you start to have to entertain scenarios that on the surface don't really make sense. And when you think about the risk that the fighter's taking to his health by taking a legit punch, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. But I can't totally rule it out, because maybe he is a good actor, So you have to consider that as well. Was the punch fake? If it was fake, how did Prenga sell it so well? Or if the punch is real, why would Prenga be willing to take that kind of damage? So when people say the fight is fixed, I do think it's important to actually state what you mean by the fight is being fixed and actually give a detailed explanation. I think it's reckless to just go out there and say, something doesn't feel right, something seems fishy, this seems off, it seems like a fix is in, but you don't point to any actual details, and actually offer detailed analysis to explain why you think the fight is fixed. Again, I get the fact that the amount of money that's on the line, the jeopardy that AJ's in, clearly the physical state that he's in, right? They had to know that he isn't right, because he clearly isn't right. But I'm still gonna go ahead and say that the fight was legit. But it was an unusual fight. I'll say that, and it was very awkward, and things did seem off. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like there's no legitimacy to people's suspicions. But again, I think that it's not productive to just go online and say that this fight was rigged, it was fixed, and you just give this blanket statement with no details and no analysis to support your opinion. So I think that that's reckless. So that's all for today, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Again, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I'm out.